Imagine you going through puberty and then suddenly you get gyno. Where did these titties come from? Why has this happened to me? Why have I developed bitch titties? Man boobs. This happened to you because you were living like Jeffrey. Do you want to find out if you've got gynecomastia? Gynecomastia is kind of like a medical disorder, like the scientific term for a guy getting like breast tissue, but this is not specifically just men getting man boobs through fat. This is like a different thing. So to find out if it's just fat or you actually have this medical condition, what you've just got to do is one, first of all, if you're fat, if you're literally above like 20% body fat, then obviously, okay, you need to lose weight first. But this, what we're talking about in this video, gynecomastia, is like a literal mass inside of your titties, which isn't just fat. And so you can't just like burn it off. The way to find out is to grab, like feel your chest, like the upper chest near your collarbone, right? And if you've got muscle, this is a lot easier, but feel the chest, you can see, I can flex it and everything. And then see around the nipple area. See, mine are puffy right now. My nipple's kind of puffy, right? And what you can do is like, if you can grab mass right there and you feel like more of a solid inside of what you're grabbing right here on the nipple, you see that? Inside of this right now, what I can feel is this texture like about this big. I can feel like this much of like mass in there, and the mass, like the thing that is gynecomastia, kind of feels like the texture of like a golf ball. You know how it has like ridges. So I have this medical symptom. I have somewhat of a mild version of it, but because I have that mass inside of my titties, my nipple area seems to kind of like puff up, especially when it's warm as well. So it's not like a great look. Like my nipples are probably like twice as big as they should be if it's really warm and I'm kind of puffed up. If I kind of put any level of friction over it within like 15 seconds, you'll see that my chest will look completely normal. My nipples will be absolutely fine. I've come to terms with this now because I'm like 7 years into realizing that I had this medical condition. And I know that it's kind of a weird thing to talk about, and a lot of guys will like, you know, think this is cringe. Why is he showing his titties? But the truth is, bro, I've looked at some research. 50 to 65% of boys going through puberty experience some level of gynecomastia. For some people, it just seems to disappear. But for the unfortunate people amongst us, it seems to stay even into adulthood. I first noticed it when I was maybe about 15, 16. And like the first symptom that you'll feel is that your nipples start to feel like quite sensitive, quite like painful to touch. Even a little bit of friction will, you know, you'll feel a little bit of pain, some kind of sensitivity there. And you'll start getting like pokey nipples that will like poke through your shirt, and it's really embarrassing. Your friends will fucking like, your friends will squeeze that shit. I'm able to like, you know, take it lightheartedly now, but it is actually, honestly, it was like the biggest insecurity of my entire life. It was like the biggest insecurity of my entire life. I've lived with this shit for like 7 years straight. I've gotten to the point now where it's like pretty much everyone who comes across me when it's puffy does like, no one really says anything. If anything, I kind of ask them, you know, sometimes I ask a friend like, bro, is it bad? Like, how does it look? Like, you know, I'm really insecure, and they'll be looking at it and be like, oh yeah, like it is a little bit puffy. But when you're going through this shit, and especially because it's such a sensitive area, and it's like, you know, it's your man boob, you're trying to be a man, you're trying to grow pecs, you're trying to look more masculine, and now you've just got like these weird fucking formation of titty mass. It makes you feel like shit. And so by now you'll roughly know whether or not you have gynecomastia. And the one thing I can say first, let's just eliminate the other thing that it could be. It could just be that you've got a high body fat percentage. So if you have, and be totally like, have humility here, because you can have a high body fat percentage without actually appearing like fat. When I was younger, I had a higher body fat percentage, but I was like skinny fat, so I was like skinny, but my body fat percentage would have been like 20, 22. You can be skinny, but still have a high body fat percentage because you're a weakling and you don't have much muscle. So ask yourself right now, do you probably have a high level of body fat? Do you have a good amount of muscle? This is like step one. First, determine whether or not you even have it. And if you right now are pretty fat, forget about gynecomastia, remove it from your mind. Just fully think to yourself, okay, I'm fat, let me fix that first. I'd say that you should only think that you've got gynecomastia when you're kind of like slim, not just skinny fat, but more slim and toned. You've got a bit of muscle, you're not like fat anymore. And then you literally see some like titty mass, which is like not going away even though you're lean.
I don't even have anything to add to this video, to be honest, man. I just sort of stood here.
Cope.
What is it, cope? You want me to just sit with my tits out?
Yeah, bro's got bitch titties, bro.
The thing is, Hamza has made me aware that I perhaps have a little bit of gyno. I'm genuinely just not insecure about it at all. I think I'd be a lot more insecure if it was like worse, but I don't think it's that bad.
Yeah, it's not.
And it's like, I only noticed it because Hamza pointed out, because his like prestige level 7 like gyno enthusiast, he knows every little bit of information about gynos. He's like, yeah, you got gyno, bro, one of us, like, and I was just like, yeah, whatever, bro, you fucking crab.
It doesn't seem to like mentally affect you, and I'd say I'm at the point now where like I'm kind of used to it and I'm just living with it, and like it's the smallest thing for me where when I notice it's really puffy, I literally just give it like the old like little bit of friction and it just kind of goes away. for like 30 seconds. That's enough to secure your first impressions with someone as like as a non-gyno. So when you give it a little bit of friction, obviously the mass is still there, but it's kind of like when you put any level of friction on your nipples, they get like harder. So that's like a quick tactic that you can use. So I'm pretty much used to, like, for example, taking my top off in like locker rooms or anything, and just quickly kind of before I take my top off, or before I take my top off before I'm like with a girl, I kind of just give it the smallest level of friction. And I'm at the point now where I'm realizing, like, yeah, that's probably not even a good thing. I'd rather be totally present in the moment, especially in those intimate moments. You don't want to be thinking of this shit. But if you're a young man watching this right now and you've went down this rabbit hole thinking, okay, I've got gynecomastia and there's no cure for this shit apart from just getting surgery, and surgery is like really expensive and it's quite like a very intrusive experience. They literally cut open your nipple and like grab the fat mass out and like stitch it back up, and then you have like a weird looking scar and like your nipples look weird anyway. So it's kind of those where it's like you're fucked. If you've got this, you are pretty fucked. But there is like mindsets which I found are more beneficial than the actual treatments options available, because when I fully had this nihilistic sense when I realized that this is something that I had, and I felt like shit, and I was, you know, watching YouTube videos and everything.
Just fucking black pilled.
Yeah, pretty much. You get like
it's over for Cortisol.
You get like a sense of like hopelessness with this, because it's so sensitive looking more like a woman when you're a young man and you want to appear more masculine. And I can explain to you, you know, the scientific reasons for why this happens, and there's better videos out there into if you want to know about the scientific part of like estrogen and testosterone and all this. But I'm going to explain it in quite like a bro science understandable way that will reframe your mind about this entire thing. This happens to young men because we live more like women. When you live more like a woman, when you're more feminine and you're less disciplined and you're not doing the things, you're not living like how a man should, then of course you're gonna be more like a woman. And the way we live absolutely does change how we look. Of course it does. If you live like a man, if you do the things that increases testosterone, then your physique and even your face and every part about you will change and look more like a man. For a bunch of young guys watching this, bro, we've literally been living more like women. We've been coddled. We don't have like a sense of adventure. We don't have a sense of boyhood or an initiation into manhood. So this is the bro science explanation. A lot of people criticize it because it's not like, you know, truly scientific, and there's like hormones are involved, but it's like the easiest way to think about it. I have this, which looks feminine. It makes me look like a woman because I've lived more like how a woman should have in my, especially in those early developmental years. So let's flip it and let's do the opposite of that from now on. Let's become more masculine. Let's live more like men. Let's improve our testosterone levels. And you don't have to overthink these things. Literally just ask yourself, how can I live more like a man? Perhaps your mother's overbearing and she's making you into like quite a weak, submissive boy. And he's like listening to her and he's like arguing with her all the time. It's like petty shit. They're insulting each other. That happens a lot in like single mother households, and you know, it's an unfortunate reality of that. Maybe you have no challenge in your life. When I was watching this shit, right, there was no level of positivity. Everyone was telling me, yeah, give up. Either get surgery or shut the fuck up. That's pretty much every single video I watched on this, and I watched a lot. Like, I was very obsessed over this. I remember there's this one particular time in high school where one of my friends fully pointed it out like loud. Like, oh, you can see Hamza's nipples through that shirt, and it's fucking embarrassing because I was already insecure of this. And then I started wearing like these tight vests, because if you wore like, you know, something underneath like an actual t-shirt, if I wore like a tight vest, it kind of like take away a bit of the point, so it would like poke out of shirts less. I remember that's when I started wearing like dark colored tops with some kind of pattern or, you know, like graphic logo or something that would kind of take it away. And I lived like this for a while. I fucking hated my life because of this. I felt really insecure, and this was about the time where we didn't have like sports as a class anymore in school, so I felt okay with that. You know, you get to like age 16, 17, 18 or something, and you're in college and you don't like, you're not forced to do it. Of course, like that's a good thing, but you're not forced to do it anymore. So I felt so insecure and so negative up until I just had this one idea, this positivity that came from weightlifting. And I literally just said to myself, okay, this is a medical condition. I'd already done some research. This is a medical condition. I can't change the size of like the weird mass that's inside of my nipple, right? I can change the size of the fat and everything, but the weird mass I can't change. And I just thought, okay, that mass that's making up this like weird nipply area is this big. It's gonna stay that big. What if I make my chest around it 10 times bigger? And that became my goal. That was a very, very important goal for me. Make your chest 10 times bigger, your chest muscles, your pecs 10 times bigger, because the gyno is gonna stay the same size, the nipple is gonna stay the same size. But what if my chest was just way bigger? That got me through some dark times, and I really wanna reframe your mindset now, because I felt like shit because of this. Chances are you're watching this, you feel like shit because of this. And now guess what? This is so weird to say. Developing this medical condition is quite literally one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Why? Because I've stayed committed to weightlifting all this time. I didn't have like the ability to not take gym and building muscle seriously because I felt like shit about my physique. So how weird is that I'm literally grateful for this medical condition that I was so insecure about, that I hated about myself so much, because now I have literally built my chest to be 10 times bigger. Right now I've not touched it at all or anything, so you can see there's a level of like puffiness. But if you saw my physique right now, I think for the majority of people, obviously we're talking about it, so your eyes are going to go straight to my nipples, but I think the majority of people who see my physique would not like straight away look at like the nipples. You'd see the shoulder, you see the chest and everything. To be honest, I don't actually meet anyone who points it out, and of course, you know, some people aren't going to point it out to be polite and stuff, but even like women I've been intimate with, even guys who are like good friends, even when I sort of bring it up to them, I'm like, oh yeah, I've got this condition and stuff, that they look at it and they're like, oh yeah, it is like a little bit bigger. It's something that they didn't even pick up on beforehand. Not to put you down, but this is not to say like, oh, this will happen to you right now either. Because chances are, you haven't been to the gym for 7 years, for 10 years yet. You haven't built your chest up yet. So you have like the same, you know, mass, the same gynecomastia size in your chest, but your pecs aren't big to make it look smaller in as like relevant to each other. That's when it looks really bad. Because imagine, okay, you see like my nipples are kind of puffy, right? They're not like small or anything, but it doesn't look that bad compared, like with the rest of my chest, it doesn't look that bad. Imagine if I didn't have any of this chest muscle.
Yeah, it'd look fucking shit.
Yeah, imagine if this is the same size, but I didn't have any of this, you know, my entire body's smaller.
It just,
and
it just like proportions it all out.
This, you know, one of the tests I always did, I thought this would change, but this is like literally, I would just see how many fingers it would stick by, and I've not done this in fucking ages, but I guarantee it's still 2 fingers. Boom. Yeah, 2 fingers. The pokiness has not changed from the start. It always, obviously this isn't fucking scientific, but it would always poke out by 2 fingers exactly, and it's still 2 fingers right now. So the pokiness, like how much it sticks out, you know, how much it sticks through shirts, is still the same for me as it always has been. You can't like change that unless you get surgery. But the difference is that the rest of my chest is way bigger. Again, like literally think about that, okay? The pokiness is the exact same, but my chest is bigger. Imagine if I didn't build this chest. Imagine if it fucking stuck out by 2 fingers, still to this day, without this chest, without the rest of the muscle that I've built. And I'm like a really skinny fat and everything, like this would stick out and this would be flat.
Yeah.
That looks like, you don't realize how bad that used to look. So there's different ways that you can go about this. Go and get surgery if you can afford it. If you like aren't opposed to it, go and get it. For some reason, it was never even a consideration in my mind, just because I've looked at like a lot of the surgery results, and I thought like it looks bad anyway. Now the nipples look weird as fuck anyway. So it's like, what was the point of it? My nipples look weird right now. I can go get a $5,000, $10,000 surgery and your nipples look weird once they've been cut up anyway. And I'm sure there's some like scientists or some doctors or something who don't make your nipples look weird afterwards, but it seemed to be kind of like a gamble. Like the real pictures, not like, you know, if you go onto like some hospital pictures, they'll kind of like show you what they look like. If you go onto like Reddit's page for gynecomastia, if you go onto like, you know, forums about it and you see people's like real transformation pictures from the surgery, you'll be like, hang on, that doesn't even look good at all. What the fuck? They've got some like weird, like dumbass looking nipple now. So it's not a win-win situation if you go for the
coin flip.
Yeah.
And it's expensive.
Yeah, I know.
And you got to fly to Turkey as well. You know something interesting which I just picked up on when you were talking? Obviously you perhaps developed gyno from being more like feminine in your developmental stage, but like indirectly you actually took on the masculine goal of building a bigger chest.
Yeah.
To get rid of your, like, you know, the proportions of the gyno, and with that you actually began to tap into your masculinity rather than staying in this like very feminine mindset.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really interesting.
The real science behind this is that there's an elevation, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, there's an elevation of estrogen, which is kind of like the female hormone, through puberty. So puberty is a very like fundamentally like important time for boys and for girls. And for a lot of people, their hormones kind of mess up because of the modern lives we live are so like messed up. And so for a lot of boys, they're not reaching the testosterone levels that they should be getting, and they're having an increase of estrogen levels because of things like, you know, we don't know how like true all this stuff is, but you know, things like pollution and plastics and like, oh, there's like estrogenic properties inside soaps and toothpaste and everything that we use, and like we're not eating foods that improve our testosterone, and all of us are sleep deprived, we don't have competition, we don't have masculinity. So of course there's like a hormone imbalance, and that's the real reason why you can develop this mass. But you can just reframe your mind instead of having to think specifically of like this weird complicated thing of like, wait, there might be like plastics and you know, this and this. Just think to yourself, okay, live more like a man.
Yeah.
Stop living like a woman. Like, if I could go back to younger Hamza, the way that he was living when he was like 15 years old, literally just sat there like existing. And that's no disrespect to women or the feminine, but the feminine energy is all about the sort of existence and the appreciation and like the flow of love and the present moment. The masculine is all about desire to goals and make progress and to achieve and conquer and accomplish. And I had none of that because I was siphoning all of my masculine goal striving energy into video games instead. So I wasn't achieving anything in real life, and I was like very low down in the social hierarchy. I was getting bullied, I was getting made fun of. I didn't attract any girls. I wasn't like, you know, being flirty with girls. I was staying so reserved and just watching porn at home, eating shit food full of sugar. When I got to age 18, then I drank a lot of alcohol, which obviously made it worse. Alcohol very heavily reduces your testosterone, and especially things like beer literally have like estrogenic properties in them anyway. So you're watching this right now and you feel this sense of like nihilism, and you're very embarrassed of how you look. Have that exact same mindset that got me here. The gynecomastia, like the mass inside of it, cannot change. What you can change is to make your chest way bigger and also to make it leaner. Get into that bodybuilding lifestyle. And I'm not talking, you know, professional bodybuilding where you've got to wear Speedos and like perform on stage, but get into the weightlifting or calisthenics. Build your body, build like an aesthetic looking chest, because with a bigger chest, bigger pecs, you know, which you'll develop through weightlifting and calisthenics, through resistance training, it's just the mass of gynecomastia is gonna look smaller in comparison. Make that one of your goals. And also as like a side quest, think to yourself, okay, live more like a man, stop living as much like a woman. There's a reason why you've developed this. And it's so easy for all these like sophisticated motherfuckers to tell you, well, yep, it's genetics, so there's nothing you can do. I fucking hate that like little wimp thinking of like, oh, but it's genetics, so that's that. That's complete and utter like wimpy thinking of like, yep, it's genetics. No. How about we take some control for this? How about we don't say it's genetics? How about, yep, it's because I was living more like a woman. Yep, because I wasn't living like a masculine man should be, like a young man should be. Now we have control. Now we have a level of strength about it. And I think that's so important to like not give up hope.
I think the power of belief is really important, guys. And I think if you do tap into your masculinity, which is something which is a big theme of what I'm doing on this trip, you are absolutely going to benefit in every possible way. You're kind of nothing without goals and purpose. I used to describe myself very often as flowing down the river of life, just, you know, living day by day, and like, you know, we'll see what happens, see where I end up, guys, that's really fun. I used to think I was like really quirky, but it's like, it's actually fucking sad. It's really, really, really feminine. I've started to set some goals here, and I've never felt more fulfilled and more purposeful, more productive, and more happy in my life. And again, very interestingly, like Hamza indirectly started to tap into his masculinity very early on by setting that goal of like, oh yeah, I want to get rid of this fucking guy, and I want to like have a nice aesthetic chest so it's like more proportionally accurate. And I think that's step one, guys. I think if you want to tap into your masculinity, fucking turn your phones off, turn every bit of stimulation off, and stare at your fucking wall for like 2 or 3 hours, however long it takes, and think about, what the hell am I doing here, and what do I want to achieve in the next X amount of time. You have many different goals you can set. You can set goals for today, you can set goals for a week, you can set goals for 5 to 10 years, which is very powerful, by the way. But for the love of God, if you don't have goals, don't get it twisted, you're still a boy, you're not a man.
Absolutely.
Just because you have a penis doesn't make you a man. Set some fucking goals, guys.
And this seems like weird advice to be listening to on a video about gynecomastia, because you probably wanted to hear about like, oh, the 6 superfoods that will help, and like, oh, the exercise that will help. It's like, you've got to break down the fundamental reason why so many young men and more young men are experiencing this. Because if it was purely genetic, then technically the rates of gynecomastia should stay relatively the same, but it's growing exponentially, like 50%. So either you or your friend has probably developed a bit of fucking gynecomastia. That's higher than it used to be. So we can talk about, you know, the symptoms and the band-aid cure for this, which is like surgery and stuff, but there's got to be like one big fundamental, like one reason for why this is happening and why it's happening more and more. And it seems like common sense. It seems like a good explanation to me that it's happening because we're just living more feminine lives as young men. Like,
Yeah.
Is it no surprise when you really see that correlation, that cause, okay, we're a lot less masculine, we're a lot more feminine, and so we look more feminine and less masculine. Is that not fucking common sense that this is why it's happening? And some people really criticize this way of thinking, and they're like, no, it's genetics and it's this and it's scientific shit. But it's like, it's as simple as that. If you do more masculine shit in your life, if you live more like a man, if you eat like a man, if you train like a man, if you surround yourself with like actual men and not like little fucking wimpy boys, men who have got goals and desires, who are putting in some work, who are disciplined and purposeful, you can't help but automatically start looking more masculine.
Yeah, talk about the beard as well.
Yeah, this is something I've gotten like hate for. I've said this previously on like a live stream. Your beard, your ability, like I had a full beard, but I've shaved it off and everything. But your ability to grow a beard, I don't think it's genetics like everyone else says. You certainly have this genetic kind of decision whether or not you have the ability, that like, you know, absolute potential. Could he have a beard or could he not? This is checked off at birth, and it's like, okay, he has the potential to grow facial hair. Some people just simply don't have the potential to grow any kind of facial hair, fair enough. But the majority of men actually have the potential to. But the majority of men aren't being able to grow, especially till like later on. You know, you hear stories about like our father's generation. Those motherfuckers had beards at like age 16. Now we're getting to like 25, and that's when like a lot of men our age is like starting to get the smallest amount of stubble. Why? I said before on a live stream that the reason why is because we're not taking responsibility. If you take responsibility, you will get your beard. And that seems so wishy-washy, so bro science-y. Still to this day, I'm proven right by everyone I meet. You live more like a man and start growing more facial hair. This is the most you've ever been able to grow, and you didn't shave that long ago.
Yeah, I shaved about 5 days ago.
You didn't grow this much usually, did you?
No, I've always had like a shitty little patch here, and then like some like pussy little, you know, prepubescent hair there, and like literally some like straggly hair. Yeah. It's
coming through. And why do you think that is?
Definitely,
you know,
like
genetics. Were you just genetically supposed to get it at this age on this month, or was it activated because you've been living literally like a man recently? So now you're starting to look more like a man.
We've been doing ridiculously masculine stuff. I think another good thing to tap into your masculinity, guys, is just living just beyond your edge of comfort. Like, comfort is absolutely the killer of man. And if you live every single day constantly just beyond your edge of comfort, I've been doing very uncomfortable things here, you will become more a man. And those things which you found uncomfortable, not so uncomfortable anymore, and you continue to progressively overload that until you are literally a fucking gorilla. You are a warrior.
I love that saying. That's from Way of Superior Man.
Yeah, it is. I've been reading The Way of Superior Man.
I've mentioned that book honestly 15-20 times in the last few videos. If you haven't gotten it already, like, you don't understand how much I've been pushing this one book onto you. If you've watched this far of the video, if what we're saying really relates to you, there's a book titled The Way of the Superior Man by David Dida. It's an absolute, like, full on, like, it's the book that I've probably recapped the most right now. Like, I go through the chapters again. It's literally like a blueprint for masculinity and manhood, and you don't even realize how wrong you've been living up until you read that book and you're like, oh shit, so that's why that was happening. So that's why I was a little bitch. So that's why I was so feminine. I've been so feminine for my entire life because we didn't even know what masculinity even was. You've never had someone even tell you that before. You've never had someone even tell you what feminine energy is. We just kind of guess, and we say like the socially desirable answers. Oh, masculinity is strength and power, and
honestly, it's kind of like, it's a bit of a stereotype that like, oh, I don't understand women. Like, oh, women are just so hard to understand.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah,
you can learn.
Like, you can fucking learn. Yeah, you absolutely can learn. Obviously, like, some shit is just gonna be like quite bizarre, and like, you know, yeah, you don't have to understand everything, but like, you can absolutely understand the differences between masculine energy and feminine energy. There's so many good quotes and so many great chapters in this book, and one of them that Sam just said is that you as a man should always live just beyond your edge, your comfort. It's kind of stereotypical to talk about on YouTube, and a bunch of YouTubers have spoke about this, but there's a big reason why. Like, you don't even realize that you watching this, like, I'm literally speaking to you have been living in comfort. You know, it's so easy to think, oh yeah, you know, the majority of men, 90% of men have been living in comfort, 90% of men are unattractive, most guys are feminine. Bro, you have been living in comfort. I have been living in comfort. Dumbass plane, bro. Plane goes by just that. Live uncomfortably, guys.
You know, I realized that the way that I've been living, all right, you would not think that the life that I have is comfortable. Like, I follow this strict timetable, especially when I'm back at home. Right now I'm traveling, but when I'm back at home, even here, like, I've got this strict timetable: wake up early, meditate, gratitude journal, read my goals, write affirmations and visualize, then go to Muay Thai, then go to weightlifting and do all this. You know what I realized the other day, bro? That's literally comfortable for me. That's routine for me. That's easy for me now. I live that normal timetable life. Like, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know how important the timetable was for me. The timetable is kind of like the secret to productivity, and there's videos I've got on my channel where I explain that. And I realized that that's actually totally in my comfort zone. You know, I was doing so much and I was wondering why, like, I don't feel like I've been out my comfort zone. I don't think I've like grown exponentially in the last like 6 months. And I realized that although what I'm doing seems incredibly hard to a lot of people, like I'm living this strict, like full on timetable life. You know how you used to have in school, 9 a.m. is this, 10 a.m. I'm gonna read, 11 a.m. I'm gonna go to the gym, like fully every day following that as best as I can. I realize, okay, I'm used to that now. What's actually harder for me is to be a bit more spontaneous and go out and like meet more people and do like interesting challenges and actually travel and like have these experiences. That's way harder for me. That's way more unnatural for me. So that's like one of my recent goals, is actually like to get out and be around life more, and that takes like a level of spontaneity which is outside of my comfort zone. For you it might be the opposite. For you it might be that your comfort zone is just kind of like living your life day to day, wishy-washy, not knowing what to do, and like, oh, you know, I've got that assignment, I've got that work thing that I should do, but you know, I'm just gonna keep pushing it off.
Do it later, like,
yeah, that's probably your comfort zone. So maybe what you need to do is get out of your comfort zone and then structure your life in a way that they have in like the military way. Okay, at 5 a.m. wake up, 6 a.m. train, 7 a.m. meditate, 8 a.m. break your fast, like living this regimented life. Maybe that's outside of your comfort zone and that's where you would grow. It's very important for you to be introspective and actually consider what you're hearing here. It might be one of the first times you've actually been inspired to like be more masculine, because you don't hear this shit in schools or in politics or like most social media pages.
As I said, guys, just beyond your comfort zone, you live there, and eventually just beyond that comfort zone actually becomes comfortable for you, and then you need to continue to do that. As Hamza preaches very often, guys, sacrifice must be progressively overloaded, otherwise you won't grow. Hamza's living like a highly productive routine, which a lot of us would think like, oh my god, this guy is such a sick guy, but like he's proven now to himself and to everyone else that he's capable of that, and the return on investment is actually getting like lower and lower. There's like diminishing returns on that. So constantly just being introspective and like what do I need to do right now to grow as a man. It's very important that you continue to be introspective and constantly wake up, obsess over your goals. Why am I doing this? Should I be doing this? X, Y, you know, constantly.
This is in such an interesting indirect way to overcome an issue like gynecomastia. Like I keep having to say in this video, like, I know that you clicked on to hear about like, oh, man boobs and how to stop man boobs, and you watch those fucking cringe. I hate those motherfuckers, bro. Those cringe YouTubers who have done those like little videos of like 6 exercises for man boobs and like, oh, just do this. I hate all these YouTubers who have made a video on gynecomastia because, or like man boobs and stuff, because they're literally doing it for views and they're just telling you the basic shit that they've read of like the Healthline website, you know, the first link on Google, which is, oh, gynecomastia can be caused and you need surgery. It's like, don't fucking give up. Like if you want to get surgery, fair enough, but for some reason, like we've all got our reasons, but the majority of young men, we're not really considering it. It just seems like too far out there. It's quite expensive, and like even for me, like not to sound like a dickhead, but the money's not really that significant for me. My incomes are very, very like in a nice place right now, but even then it's like I'm not really considering it. It just seems weird. God damn, bro.
I was trying to hold in the cough.
Dude's just crying, living at the edge of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I was living at the edge of my comfort zone with that cough.
Oh yeah, I lost where I was at, bro.
You were talking about how rich you are.
I thought at some point it was like, oh, I'm not gonna get it because it's too expensive, but I realize now it's just because it's so fucking intrusive. It's bigger of a surgery than you think it is. Like you have to wear like a vest and shit, and you have to like sleep in a weird way, and you can't go to the gym for like 6 weeks and stuff. That's so like intrusive, and fair enough, you know, I've dedicated 7 years to avoid those 6 weeks of not being able to go to the gym. At least for me, like that power of like positivity and that reframe into more like of a masculine way to live with like weightlifting, and then eventually diet, and then eventually like brotherhood, and like those, you know, those like things that improve testosterone, like eggs and sunlight and vitamin D. Literally, this medical condition, gynecomastia, was the start of all this. So maybe if there's one final thing I can say to you is just reframe your mind about this, and don't so much see it as, you know, the problem, which is like, you know, it's so annoying in your mind. See it with that title of the book, The Obstacle is the Way. That this obstacle right now is something that you're actually going to be very grateful for if you take the right steps. And a lot of guys don't. A lot of guys just give up, and they're just so upset that they've got some like handicap. I said this to Sam just the other day. I was like, bro, God had to nerf me. I would have been too strong. I would have been like too masculine, too sexy. Like God, or like whoever created me, had to give me bitch tits and like fucking upper eyelid exposure. Otherwise I would have been too much of a chad. And that's fine, bro. Okay, I'll take the challenge. Let's see how far I can get anyway. But I literally have this physique because of this medical condition, because I just used it to inspire and motivate me instead of just being sat there and like continuing to feel down about it and hope that you've gotten some level of inspiration from this. And you just have this like arrogant, aggressive mindset. Like, yep, I've got bitch tits, but I'm gonna grow my chest to be 10 times bigger. My pecs are gonna be 10 times bigger, but the nipples and the gynecomastia mass is gonna stay the same size, so you won't even notice it anymore. You can subscribe to our channel if you want to. Welcome to the cult. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Mwah.